Margaret's kitchen was more than just a room. It was the heartbeat of her home. A sanctuary where love was measured in simmering pots and warm loaves of bread. For over 4 decades, it had been the backdrop to her life's most cherished moments. The scent of homemade soup wafting through the air, the soft clatter of dishes during family dinners, and the rhythmic chop of a knife against a cutting board had woven themselves into the fabric of her existence. Each tool, each plate, each utensil carried a story, a history of birthdays, holidays, and quiet evenings shared with loved ones. The worn handle of her favorite ladle, smoothed by years of stirring, felt like an extension of her hand. The cutting board, scarred with decades of knife marks, bore witness to countless meals prepared with cares. Her dishes, handed down from her mother, were not just plates, but vessels of memory, holding the weight of every celebration and hardship they had seen. To Margaret, her kitchen was a sacred space, a place where she poured her heart into feeding her family, never once questioning the safety of the tools she trusted. Like many women of her era, Margaret approached cooking with a blend of instinct and tradition. She learned recipes at her mother's side, mastering the art of a perfectly flaky pie crust or a hearty stew that could stretch to feed unexpected guests. Her kitchen tools were chosen for their reliability and familiarity, not for their chemical composition or manufacturing standards. She trusted that the items she used, pans, plates, and utensils, were safe because they had always been there, faithfully serving her family through years of meals. But one evening, everything changed. Her granddaughter, always eager to share tidbits from the internet, sent her an article that stopped her in her tracks. It was about hidden dangers lurking in everyday kitchen items, things Margaret had used for most of her life without a second thought. The article spoke of risks like microplastics, forever chemicals, and food dyes linked to health concerns. At first, Margaret felt a pang of disbelief. How could something as ordinary as her cutting board or her beloved non-stick skillet pose a threat? But as she read on, curiosity turned to concern, and concern gave way to a quiet resolve. She wasn't reckless or naive. She had simply lived in a time when these risks were unknown or unspoken. Now, armed with new information, she felt a responsibility to learn more and make changes, not out of fear, but out of love for the people she cooked for. This isn't a story meant to alarm or shame anyone. It's a gentle reminder that wisdom grows with time, and even the most thoughtful among us are always learning. Margaret's journey reflects the experience of countless women who have stood at their stoves, stirred pots with care, and fed their families with devotion. Her story is a call to listen, reflect, and make informed choices without guilt or pressure to overhaul everything at once. Being wise doesn't mean knowing everything. It means recognizing when it's time to pause, reassess, and adapt. In this spirit, let's explore 10 hidden dangers that might be quietly residing in your kitchen and discover practical, thoughtful ways to create a safer, healthier space for the meals you love to share. Margaret's dishes were more than just tableware. They were a living record of her family's history. The coral plates with soft blue flowers, a wedding gift from the late 1970s, had seen it all. Sunday roast chickens, birthday cakes adorned with candles, and quiet dinners of leftovers during lean times. Each plate carried the weight of those moments, etched into their surfaces like a family heirloom. They were sturdy, dependable, and beautiful in their simplicity, and Margaret cherished them deeply. But one afternoon, as her daughter helped her reorganize the kitchen cupboards, a simple question shifted her perspective. "Mom, did you know that older dishes might contain lead?" At first, Margaret dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand. "These? I've had them forever. They're fine." But the question lingered, nagging at her, until she sat down that evening to do some research. What she found was startling. Dishes made before the late 1970s, and even some into the 1980s, often used glazes or decorative paints containing lead. At the time, lead was a common ingredient in ceramic glazes, valued for its ability to create vibrant colors and a smooth, glossy finish. Regulations were lax, and even well-known brands produced dishes that, while deemed safe by the standards of the day, could pose risks today. Lead is a heavy metal that accumulates in the body over time, particularly when dishes are scratched, chipped, or used to serve acidic foods like tomatoes or citrus. For children and pregnant women, the risks are especially severe, potentially affecting brain development and overall health. But even for adults, long-term exposure to lead can contribute to issues like high blood pressure, memory problems, or joint pain. Margaret's eyes drifted to her favorite plate, the one with a tiny chip near the edge, a flaw she had always seen as a charming sign of wear. Now, it took on a new meaning. That chip wasn't just a mark of time, it was a potential pathway for lead to leach into her food. The discovery was unsettling, but Margaret didn't let it overwhelm her. Throwing out her beloved dishes felt like discarding a piece of her history, so she sought a middle ground. She decided to keep her vintage plates for display only, arranging them carefully on a shelf where they could still spark joy without coming into contact with food. For everyday meals, she invested in new, lead-free dishware, choosing simple, modern designs that were certified safe and easy to clean. The transition wasn't about erasing her past, but about protecting her present. She learned that honoring memories didn't mean risking health, and that small, deliberate choices, like swapping out a chipped plate, could make a big difference. For years, Margaret swore by her plastic cutting board. It was a white, lightweight rectangle that had been a staple in her kitchen for over a decade. She loved how easy it was to clean, how it fit neatly in the dishwasher, and how it didn't warp like the wooden boards her mother once used. That board had seen it all: carrots diced for soups, onions chopped for casseroles, chicken breasts sliced for weeknight dinners, and holiday hams carved for festive gatherings. But over time, Margaret noticed something troubling. The surface was crisscrossed with deep grooves from her knives, marks that no amount of scrubbing could fully clean. She began to wonder if those scratches were harboring bacteria, a concern that grew when she read about the potential dangers of plastic cutting boards. Her research revealed something even more alarming. Plastic cutting boards, especially when worn or heavily scratched, can shed tiny particles known as microplastics into food. These microscopic fragments, invisible to the naked eye, can be ingested during meal preparation. Recent studies have found microplastics in human bloodstreams, tissues, and even unborn babies, raising questions about their long-term effects on health. While the full impact is still being studied, early research suggests that microplastics may contribute to inflammation, hormonal imbalances, and other health concerns. Margaret was stunned. The cutting board she had trusted for years, the one she thought was the cleanest and most practical choice, might be silently introducing unwanted particles into her family's meals. Determined to make a change, Margaret explored alternatives and discovered that wooden cutting boards, when properly maintained, are not only safe but often superior to plastic. Natural woods like maple or walnut have inherent antibacterial properties, and with regular care, such as hand washing and occasional oiling, they can be both hygienic and durable. She replaced her old plastic board with a solid maple one, its smooth grain and sturdy weight feeling like a return to something more authentic. She learned to care for it, wiping it down after each use and rubbing it with mineral oil once a month to keep it in top condition. The new board wasn't just safer, it felt like a keepsake, something she could one day pass down to her granddaughter, a symbol of care and intention in her kitchen. Margaret's non-stick skillet was her morning ritual's unsung hero. It glided through eggs, over easy, sunny side up, or folded into delicate omelettes with effortless grace. For years, it had been her go-to pan, its slick surface making cooking a breeze. But as time passed, she noticed small scratches where her spatula had grazed the coating, and a tiny chip near the edge. At first, she shrugged it off. The pan still worked after all, but a conversation with a friend introduced her to a term that gave her pause: forever chemicals. These per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, used to create the non-stick coating, were designed to be durable. So durable that they persist in the environment and the human body for years, earning their ominous nickname. Further reading revealed that scratched or chipped non-stick pans, when heated, can release PFAS into the air or food. These chemicals have been linked to a range of health issues, from hormone disruption to weakened immune responses and even certain cancers. The idea that her beloved skillet could be silently harmful was overwhelming. But Margaret didn't let fear take over. Instead, she made a plan. She began phasing out her non-stick pans, replacing them with stainless steel for searing and sauces and cast iron for everything else. The cast iron, once seasoned, proved nearly as non-stick as her old skillet with a bit of practice. For the few dishes that still challenged her, like those tricky eggs, she purchased a small ceramic-coated pan, carefully labeled as PFAS-free, and used it with a wooden spatula to preserve its surface. The shift wasn't just about safety, it was about rediscovering the joy of cooking with tools that felt timeless and trustworthy. Margaret's rice cooker was a cherished gift from her son, a compact appliance that churned out perfect rice every time. On busy nights, it doubled as a soup pot or slow cooker, earning its place as her little kitchen helper. But her research into non-stick coatings extended beyond pans to appliances like her rice cooker and popular air fryers. Many of these devices, she learned, used the same PFAS-laden coatings in their inner pots or baskets. When heated, especially at high temperatures, these coatings could leach chemicals into food or release fumes into the air. The discovery was a wake-up call. Convenience, she realized, didn't always equate to safety. Rather than abandon her rice cooker, Margaret found a stainless steel inner pot that fit her model perfectly. She also began researching air fryers with stainless steel or glass interiors, bookmarking brands to watch for during sales. The changes weren't immediate, but they were deliberate, reflecting her commitment to her family's health without sacrificing the tools she relied on. Each step felt like a small victory, a way to align her kitchen with her values of care and caution. In Margaret's utensil drawer, black nylon spoons and spatulas had long been staples. They were affordable, lightweight, and gentle on her pans, making them a practical choice. But a health blog recommended by a friend introduced her to a concerning study. Many black nylon utensils, particularly inexpensive ones, contain flame-retardant chemicals typically used in furniture or electronics. When exposed to heat or acidic foods like tomato sauce, these chemicals could potentially leach into meals. Margaret examined her utensils and noticed some were worn, their tips discolored from years of stirring hot soups and sauces. The thought that something so ordinary could carry hidden risks unsettled her. She began replacing her nylon utensils with solid wood and stainless steel alternatives. The wooden spoon felt substantial in her hand, its natural grain a reminder of simpler, safer materials. The stainless steel slotted spoon was perfect for draining pasta or vegetables. She didn't overhaul her drawer overnight, but as each utensil wore out, she made a conscious choice to replace it with something safer. Reaching for these new tools brought a quiet confidence, a sense that her kitchen was becoming a place of greater intention and care. Friday evenings were Margaret's time to unwind. She'd pop a bag of kettle corn in the microwave, pour it into a bowl, and settle in with a mystery novel. The ritual was a small luxury, a moment of comfort in her busy week. But an article about microwave popcorn bags disrupted this routine. Many of these bags, she learned, are lined with PFAS to resist grease. And heating them could transfer these chemicals to the popcorn or release them as fumes. Some studies suggested that inhaling these fumes might be even more harmful than ingesting them. The realization stung, her simple pleasure now felt tainted. Instead of giving up popcorn, Margaret invested in a stovetop popcorn maker. The first batch, made with coconut oil and a pinch of sugar, was crisp and delicious, rivaling her old microwave favorite. She began experimenting with flavors, sea salt and rosemary, cinnamon and honey, turning her ritual into a creative outlet. The extra effort was minimal, and the result was a safer, more personal tradition that still brought her joy. Parchment paper was Margaret's baking ally, lining trays for cookies and roasted vegetables to prevent sticking and simplify cleanup. She trusted it implicitly until she noticed the non-stick label on her usual brand and began to investigate. Some parchment papers, she discovered, are coated with silicone, or PFAS, which can leach into food or release fumes when heated. The thought of her muffins or roasted squash absorbing these chemicals was unsettling. She switched to an unbleached, compostable parchment paper free of harmful coatings. The rustic brown paper worked just as well, and her oatmeal cookies slid off the tray as effortlessly as ever. It was a small change, but it reinforced her belief that every choice in the kitchen matters. Margaret's cupboard was a treasure trove of mismatched plastic containers, some store-bought, others repurposed from yogurt or margarine tubs. They were practical, just like her mother's, but their cloudy, cracked surfaces began to raise questions. Research revealed that older plastics, especially those predating 2012, might contain BPA or other chemicals that can leach into food when microwaved or washed in hot water. Even newer, microwave-safe plastics could release microplastics when worn. Margaret sorted through her collection, recycling anything stained, warped, or outdated. She replaced them with glass containers, which were sturdy, clear, and safe for reheating. The organized fridge and peace of mind were worth the effort. Margaret loved adding color to her food, pink frosting for her granddaughter's birthday cupcakes, green jello for festive holidays. But an article about artificial food dyes revealed their origins in petroleum and potential links to behavioral issues in children and cancer risks in animal studies. Checking her pantry, she found dyes in cereals and snacks she'd never questioned. Instead of abandoning colorful food, she turned to natural alternatives like beet powder for pink, turmeric for yellow, and spirulina for blue. Her baking became a creative adventure, and when her granddaughter marveled at the naturally pink frosting, Margaret's heart swelled with pride. Finally, Margaret revisited her vintage dishes, including her beloved coral plates. A video about lead in older ceramics confirmed her fears. Many plates from before 2005, especially those with decorative glazes, could contain lead that leaches if scratched or worn. Rather than discard them, she reserved them for display, switching to lead-free plates for daily use and ordering a lead testing kit to check her collection. It was a balance between preserving her history and protecting her health, a fitting end to her journey of thoughtful change. Margaret's story is one of growth, not guilt. Each discovery about lead, microplastics, or forever chemicals was a chance to make her kitchen safer without losing its heart. Her small, deliberate changes transformed her space into one that honored both her past and her family's future, proving that wisdom in the kitchen is about listening, learning, and loving through every meal.